the meeting control over to Graham, who will be taking us through as Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome along to this meeting of the Online Presenters Toastmasters Club. My name, as you have just heard, is Graham Cairns. I'm going to be your Toastmaster for this meeting, the number of which I can't see on the agenda, but it really doesn't matter because, you know, we all know where we are and what we're doing. There are a few changes to the agenda. I'd like to run through them and introduce a few of our functionaries tonight. So, as I say, my name is Graham Cairns and I am the Toastmaster for the evening. Our counter tonight is going to be Carol Prahinsky. Carol, would you like to come forward and tell us what it is that you will be looking for, or listening for, more to the point?
But I don't know. But I think so, and so.
That's cheating.
Disfluencies hinder our connection with our audience. Therefore, by being aware, we can learn to stop that behavior from occurring and have a better and stronger connection with our audience. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you, Carol. Our timer tonight, and everything that we do in Toastmasters is timed, not because we are bugbears for this, but because if you're using too much time, then you're stealing somebody else's. Our timer tonight is Scott Johnson. Scott, can you tell us how our timing is going to function this evening and how you're going to tell us our times?
Certainly, Mr. Toastmaster, that would be my pleasure. As we all know, time management is very important. So I'm going to be checking all the times, and I'm going to use, this is my green. This white thing will be my amber. And of course, we get a red. And if you go over that, I'll make a lot of noise. So I'm looking forward to keeping you all to time and enjoying the meeting.
Thank you, Scott. And I look forward to not hearing a lot of noise because we're all going to be good. But I mean, and don't forget, by the way, folks, when you have finished speaking, if you can mute your microphone again, that would be a nice thing. We, at this stage, don't have a grammarian that I am aware of. Is there anybody who wishes to put their hand up to be the grammarian and keep an eye on the good and bad use of the language today? Silence came. Jim, I see a hand waving there. Jim, if you would be a grammarian, can you tell us what you'll be looking for?
Okay, the grammarian normally looks for use of good and lively language in any part of the meeting. I'll kind of be listening for phrases that just kind of sound good to me and that sort of thing. And if anybody is doing it wrong, I'm going to have to write that down somewhere and make a note of it, but I probably won't say who did the infraction. But we'll get on with it. And
be grammarian, Grammarly, yes. What would the word there be? We'll be.
Oh, we should have a word of the day.
Ah, yes.
What's a good word of the day?
Spontaneous is a good word of the day.
No.
Did you have a different word?
That was last week's.
We had spontaneous last week.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was for our other club.
That happened.
Well, the theme was Labor Day. We don't seem to have really a word on the agenda, but words related to labor. So think in terms of labour and those sorts of things.
Okay,
all right, thank you.
I'll write that down if I hear anything that sounds.
How about paddling? That's how we labored today. We paddled and paddled out on the ocean.
And then scuba dove, we heard. Our watcher, we don't have a watcher role. Now, this club has a watcher role because we like to get people to watch what we're doing because it is an online medium. Is there anybody who Carol is sticking up her hand, so Carol will be the watcher, and that would be a fabulous thing. You're also evaluating, I believe, Carol, but that's all right. You can be a watcher as well. Carol, you will be watching for?
All of those wonderful positionings of yourself on the celebrity head screens. So for example, if you are moving around, we consider that to be quite distracting. You know, if I'm doing this all the time, or, you know, I'm lounging around or moving my screen around, it's distracting. So try to either center yourself or position yourself in such a way, and I will be watching for good habits there.
Excellent. I thank you, Carol. Now, we have a vote counter and a chat monitor, and we have combined those roles tonight because the amazing multitasking Arlene is capable of being amazing and multitasking. But she'll tell us what she's doing.
Well, on the chat monitor, I'll be there as a referee in case you get in an argument, or to help you if you need any help, and then I can let Graham know what's happening if you have a request of some kind. And also, because I am there, it'll be very easy for me to be the vote counter. If we vote for something tonight, just send your vote, yes, no, or whatever, to me in a private chat.
Thank you, Arlene. I thank you for that. Now, those are the people who will be doing the things that make my job easier. Now we come to the bit that most people come to a Toastmasters Club for, and that is the presentations, the speeches. We were to have 3 speeches tonight, but unfortunately Norman had to cancel at the last moment because his monitor blew up. Now, that's not something that I would wish on anybody, but with an online presentation, it's very difficult to do that if you can't actually see what you are doing. So tonight we have 2 speeches. We have one coming up, both of them from the advanced manuals, by the way, one from Adrienne and the other is Chris Gould. Now, our first speaker tonight is Adrienne, and I'm just getting my details up here. Adrienne Williams is presenting tonight a speech, and I need to go over to this one because it did tell me, it's the speech title is The Private Island Experience. Now, this is from the Advanced Communication Manual, The Entertaining Speaker, and it's speech number 4. Her evaluator will be Fabiola, and Fabiola, you have been sent the evaluation, or you at least have the evaluation guide for this? Good. Well, let me tell you a little about Adrienne then. Adrienne has been working in the financial services industry for 20 years. She has an enormous amount of experience. She's also a past corporate controller of a Fortune 500 company and a past auditor. Her clients include Miami-Dade County, the City of Miami, Florida Memorial University, and many others. So tonight, to present a speech for a time of 5 to 7 minutes, Mr. Timekeeper, with indications at 5, 6, and 7. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please make welcome Adrienne Williams with The Private Island Experience.
Oh, Toastmasters and guests. Oh, beautiful South Florida. It is just amazing. This particular day, it was a bright, sunny day. You would have had to have on shades, of course, because the sun was just beaming on my face. At 90 degrees in South Florida, Miami, it is so hot. Oh my gosh. So my friends and I decide we're going on a party. The party is on a yacht. So this is a yacht party. Amazing. We had been out the night before, partying, getting down in the club. So we met these guys. They were visiting from Atlanta, and they were like, fun. And we were like, you guys ought to come with us to the pool party tomorrow. They came. It's at my friend's house. They took off their shirts. Oh my goodness. All of the men had 6 packs cut up. You can't really see, but cut up 6 packs from here to there. It was afternoon. So as we're on this journey, everyone says, well, let's get in the pool first before we go on the boat. So we get in the pool. Everybody's drinking. The drinks are flowing. I have my margarita in my glass. So, of course, I'm sipping it on a hot summer day, trying to cool down a bit. So we get in the pool. Everyone's having a great time. Next thing you know, they're like, listen, enough of that. Pull out the jet skis. We want to ride. So they get the jet skis, and we go riding. We're having a great time. We see dolphins in the water, splashing, jumping around. The waves are rocking the boat. It was amazing. And then, of course, they're like, listen, that's enough of that. We're all going to get on this yacht, and we're going to go and ride. So we got on this big yacht. It must have been about 50 of us at this party. So we get on the boat. We're riding. Lo and behold, what is that over there? It's a beautiful, big, private island. It's like Gilligan's Island. We're here by ourselves. There's nobody else here. Oh, this is perfect for a barbecue. So we get out. They make a fire. We're cooking up hamburgers and hot dogs that we already kept on the boat because we're going to do this. We do this every week. And so we had a great time. We're got bathing suits. We're swimming. We're having a great time. Everything is cool. Next thing you know, we look down. It's about 4 or 5 hours later. Oh my gosh, we've been here a long time. We better start getting ready to go because there are no lights on the island, no bathrooms, nothing. It's like a little just sand, dirt, and little places for you to grill out. And so, of course, we're ready to go. So everybody lines up to get on the boat. There's a problem with the boat. What do you mean there's a problem with the boat? The boat won't start. What do you mean the boat won't start? It's starting to get dark. There are no lights on the island. We're stranded. What are we going to do? If the boat can't take us back, what are we going to do? So everyone's starting to panic. There's a long line of people. There's about 50 people here. And so people are starting to get anxious and frustrated because they're ready to go. We had been out there all day, sand's in your clothes. You don't really have a place that you can shower off and clean up, so you're already dirty and filthy on top of that. The next thing that happens is that my friend says, they're starting to fight and push and get rowdy about getting on this boat. People are starting to stress out. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. My friend is like, listen, you have sickle cell, right? Yes. He was a cop. He's like, I have a solution. We're not going to get out here in the midnight and it's going to be dark and we can't see. We don't know these people. We don't know what's going to happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to call the Coast Guard. I'm like, what does my sickle cell anemia have to do with the Coast Guard? Well, the Coast Guard will come and get us, but it's got to be an emergency. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not having an emergency. What's the emergency? You're pregnant. You're going to tell them you're pregnant. We're stranded on this island and they are going to come get us. And I was like, look, I'm afraid. I'm not going to tell a lie and say that I'm pregnant and I'm stuck with sickle cell. They're like, listen, you have to do that because otherwise we're going to be stranded out here. It's starting to get dark. You cannot see. We're in the intercoastal. This is like the ocean. It's not safe. And I'm like, oh my gosh, as mosquitoes are starting to bite us because it's starting to get dark, I'm like, oh gosh, maybe we need to do that. So sure enough, he calls the phone. It calls the Coast Guard. 911, this is an emergency. We're stuck. We're on a stranded island. We don't know where we are. We see this building, a tall building, is black and gray. We see a bridge. We're trying to explain the surroundings. We don't know where we are. We're underwater. There's no street signs or no maps. We don't have a compass. How do we know where we are? So we let them know. Sure enough, we let them know about from where we were and how long it had taken us to travel on the boat. 10, 15 minutes to this island, they had a general idea of where we were. It must have been an hour later that the Coast Guard came and they started calling about where we got an emergency call. Where's the lady that's pregnant? And everybody's looking around. I'm so embarrassed. I'm ashamed. I don't know what to say. I'm like, sir, it's me. I have sickle cell anemia. You know, I can't go into this situation and I'm pregnant. So this is a bad situation. I can't be stressed because it puts me into a crisis. And so I need to be helped. There's no food on the island, no bathrooms, no water, none of that. So the Coast Guard says, ma'am, don't worry. Let me help you on the boat. So he helps me. I'm walking. I'm trying to walk all slow. And next thing I know, we were on the boat, waving goodbye to everybody else stuck on the island because we were out of there. So the next time you are on a boat and you're driving by and you see those nice private islands and you think you want to go camp out for the day, honey, make sure your cell phone is charged and you have a backup battery because if anything happens and you get stuck out there, it is a scary sight at night when it's dark because there's no lights. It is crazy. So just think of that. When you are out on this adventure, no matter how good looking the people are, if they don't have a backup plan, your private island experience may not be the one that you think. Fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you, Adrienne. Thank you. Thank you. No, may look pregnant, but I am not. I have to assure you of that. Thank you, Adrienne, for that speech. We have a second speaker this evening, and that's Chris Gould, who is going to be giving us a speech from the Storytelling Manual number 2, Let's Get Personal. Now, Chris sent me an introduction, and she said that she's going to tell us the story about choosing to live in an RV instead of a house. She and her husband sold their house and lived in a large motorhome for 14 years. They now have a townhouse and a small motorhome, and spend their time 50-50 at home and on the road. Today, they're at home. We know this because Jim is downstairs and Chris is upstairs to present her speech this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. May 15, 2004. Marked 1 month on the road as full-time RVers. The initial flush of excitement had dissipated, and the creeping panic of, oh my God, what have we done, reared its ugly head. There we were, with no income, a downward stock market that was depleting our savings, and we'd left Florida behind, and all our family, our friends, our clients, and any support systems. I was freaked out. Jim found me, curled up in a fetal position in the bed in our new RV, mumbling something. He says, "What's wrong?" I said, "We're going to run out of money. I don't know what we're going to do." I cried. "I think we need to leave tomorrow and go to your buddy's house in New Jersey, and maybe we can get a job there or something." He said calmly, "Well, all right, but let's go for a walk first on the beach. You see, this is where we were. Parked at Ocracoke Campground in Hatteras National Seashore. Absolutely pristine, wonderful." And I said, well, okay. I tore myself away from my worrying and joined Jim and our little mini poodle Odie for a walk on the beach. I took my camera. I was in heaven. My worries washed away with each wave, and in their place was the growing certainty that this was the life I wanted to lead. Jim is a smart man. He knows that arguing with me about money wasn't going to get him anywhere, but changing my point of view, getting me out onto the beach, was definitely going to win his view. Well, that was 2004. What's that? 13 years ago. And we've been on the road ever since. Our first RV was something that we found on eBay. We paid $30,000 cash for this. We lived in it for 8 years. It was wonderful, but as I say, I started by totally freaking out about this lifestyle that we had chosen. RV number 2 was an upgrade. We had learned to live on the road. We had found work that required us to have bigger space inside. So it was a major upgrade, and we lived in this for 6 years. It's a 37-foot with 2 big slides. And then RV number 3, we just got this year. This is the only one, this little bitty RV. It's called a Road Trek. and we can park it in a parking spot right in front of our townhouse. This is the only one that actually I have not had any freak out about. This one is perfect. So what is it about the RV lifestyle? I'm tempted to say that it has nothing to do with the road. It's the freedom. It's the places you go. It's the things you see. But, you know, sometimes it is about the road. Jim likes to drive. I like to ride. We make a good team that way. This actually may be my favorite part of life on the road. You go through ever-changing countryside, and especially the wide open spaces are wonderful. I'm filled with awe over the landscape that we see. The hum of the wheels and the rhythm of the road is hypnotic. I won't mention the rattling of the dishes and the crash of the things falling that we didn't properly stow, okay? And then we were someplace new, someplace beautiful. Oh man, have we seen some beautiful places. This happens to be Crater Lake in Oregon. When you live in an RV, home is where you park it, wherever that may be. And we have splurged for some luxury RV resorts. This one I think cost us $150 a night down in the Keys. We have also stayed in some pretty seedy places, but that we may have enjoyed just as much, because this one actually happens to be a hot springs in Arizona. We also, if we are in travel mode, we don't need anything in particular to stay at. We often spend the night at a rest area, or Cracker Barrel is one of our favorites. You stay there for the night, you get dinner and breakfast. Or Walmart. And then there is a special website called Harvest Host that lets you know about places where you can park your RV at farms and wineries. Elks Lodges have become a favorite. We joined Elks just for this purpose, and there are Elks Lodges all over the country that allow you to park your RV if you are a member. With this new little RV, you can park in some special places. This picture is in Toronto, where it was just a municipal parking lot right in front of the CN Tower, and we could stay there the night. So what's so great about the RV lifestyle? You can keep on going. We get to keep on going. That's what I love so much about the full time. I've had lots of wonderful vacations in my life, but you always have to come back. When you're RVing, these are maps of where we've been each year, and there is no tether on us when we are full-time. Now, we have this townhouse in Fort Lauderdale, we have the new little RV, and I think maybe we're traveling even more. This is our map from 2017, and we aren't done yet. We're leaving at the end of September and going to New Orleans, and then up to Arkansas and Illinois before coming back to Florida for the winter. Read more on our blog. This is the lifestyle that we live and love, and we encourage you to try it out. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you. I have to say, even for somebody who's not used to driving on your side of the road, that looked like that would be amazing. I thank you for that. But I'm not going to say too much more because that's the role of the evaluator, who is yet to do their job. So I'll give them some time to prepare. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get to the evaluation, it's time for one of my favourite parts of Toastmasters. Now, a lot of people don't like table topics. I don't understand that. Table topics is fun. Table topics is exciting. Table topics is what David Carr is going to be presenting for us for the next, what do we got, 10 minutes or something, I think, is on the agenda for this one, David. Anyway, David Carr with our table topics session.
Thank you, Toastmaster. Well, this is going to be an easy one, I think. It's Labor Day. We get to talk about work good and bad. let's see. George Marshall, maybe you could tell us about your favorite or your most memorable or your most awful high school job. You remember?
My most memorable or most awful job. That part I remember about the jobs I didn't like was getting fired. They all started off well. I enjoyed them at the beginning. I had a lot of fun, did some great things, but inevitably something went south. But then that's what tends to happen when you work in startups in Silicon Valley, and the fortunes of the company come up and go down. The fortunes of the leaders within the companies come up and go down. And the fortunes of the individuals come up and go down. We're not really strong on procedure and powerful HR departments and lots of protection for employees who have crossed the leader. So I didn't really get fired from all the jobs. Some of them, the company disappeared out from under me. Some of them I voluntarily moved on. The ones where I voluntarily moved on was when the startup was no longer fun and I moved on to do something else. So it's quite different nowadays. I spent most of my career working for these Silicon Valley companies, sometimes where I was employee 1, 2, or 3, sometimes where I started as employee 30 or 40 or 50, and usually left when it got to be a few hundred people. Now I'm in a huge, huge company. There's 2 of us. You may have seen my wife in the background of the camera a little while ago. She's sitting a few feet from me, working on websites, while I try to avoid doing any online advertising campaigns in between. So I would say getting fired is one of the more interesting things about a startup, but I managed to survive it and go on and have fun even later on. Mr. Topics Master.
Great. Thank you, George. Carol Prahinsky, I was particularly interested in hearing about high school jobs. Do you have a high school job story to tell us?
Yes, of course. I worked in the same job from my sophomore year through my sophomore year of university. I would come back during Christmas holidays and Easter time or summer holidays to work there as well. My job was in a drugstore, an independent drugstore. And it was a small drugstore right across from the big one. And so our competition was the big one. I started as in the cosmetic aisle, which was where they put people that they didn't know what to do with. And slowly but surely, I was able to expand my repertoire to be able to handle just anything that was dealt my direction. I learned how to sell cosmetics really well. I learned how to work the lottery machine and hobnob with the locals that would buy their lottery tickets. I learned how to sell tobacco. We sold cigars and pipe tobacco. I learned how to sell prescription drugs. I learned how to count pills, even though I wasn't allowed to legally, but I was really good at it, so I got to count pills. I learned how to dust and organize the inventory so that my boss could come in the next morning and be able to quickly place orders. He loved my meticulous detail, and it was a strength for him to be able to come in very quickly to place those replenishment orders. I learned a lot about inventory management, but my favorite section of all was the candy aisle. That was my favorite. And later, my life transitioned to work in a candy manufacturing plant after graduation from university. So my dad says he never should have let me watch that Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie. I had no problem with the candy aisle. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
All right, excellent. Jim Gold, you've been self-employed for this past couple of years, but tell us about maybe an earlier job, something that you learned a lot from. So you're not allowed to talk about working for Chris before you were married, but go back a little further. What's the job that you think you learned the most from?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Topic Master. Well, way before Chris and before the beginning of time, My family had a restaurant. It was called the Pumpernickel. It was a deli restaurant, and that's where I learned most of what I ever needed to know about. That's where I learned it. I started there in 1970. My parents bought this restaurant. It was right in front of our house. It was on the main road, and our house was one off of the main road. And it was actually the first place that I ever had a paying job. When I was 12 years old, the restaurant was there. We owned the gas station a couple of blocks away, and I would wash pans, pickle barrels, actually, metal pickle barrels. My job was to wash those out and to clean them out for a guy named Harry Katz, who ran that restaurant. Well, my parents bought that restaurant, and I started working there. And I learned everything that I ever needed to know about anything in the world at that restaurant, because it was a microcosm of the entire universe. It was only open from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So today, being Labor Day, would have been my last major day of the year, and I would be ready to close the doors and do something else for the winter. Mr. Table Topics Master.
All right, thank you. Mr. Toastmaster, I think we have time for one or maybe even two more. Does that sound okay to you? Two more, okay. Fabiola, I don't know much about your work life. Tell us about what was your first job that really meant something to you?
Well, very interesting, because I went to a professional school and I got a degree to be a management secretary, but I've never done that type of work. But that was a basis for me to get into marketing, and also being in marketing, I got to apply my passion, which is languages. So my job was editing and correcting text. Since our island, we communicate in 4 languages, which is our native language, Papiamento, Dutch, English, and Spanish. So being so fluent in all of them, and my passion for languages and in marketing department, those combinations gave me the best job I ever had. And I've worked in that department for almost 12 years. And then I got offered another challenge, but didn't be so great as that first one, but it did give me another chance to really get into what I would like, and that is more and more to be giving languages, teaching languages. So now I have a degree in teaching, and that's what I do at this moment. So that is how my career and my jobs went. Back to you.
Thank you. All right. Carol McCullough, I'd like to hear from you. Tell us about your toughest job. It can be tough good or tough bad.
My goodness, you caught me on the hop there, Mr. Topics Master. I have quite a few that I could refer to. I too am a teacher, and I have been teaching in various environments for many decades. The one that I found to be the most challenging was this one. And it's popped into my head because it's a memory that will stay with me. Imagine this. It's a hot Friday afternoon. The classroom is filled with, 30 plus students of the year 7 variety. That's the 12 to 13-year-olds. Difficult at best, but it's so hot that I find that I cannot engage with them and get their attention because it's too hot. So I decided that we needed to let the principal know how hot it was. So we took a vote with the students because they weren't doing any work. There was no point. It was towards the end of Friday and they just wanted to go home. There was no air conditioning. And this is back in the 70s and 80s. So I enlisted one of the class leaders to pop over to the principal's office and ask him to step in because there was a problem in the classroom. And he did come in, and the students were able to show him just how hot it was because it wasn't a normal classroom. It was filled with computers. And imagine that without air conditioning. It must have been getting close to 45 degrees in there. And I'm happy to say that because the principal experienced what it was like in that hot room on late Friday afternoon, that we got air conditioning for the first time in the computer rooms. So, Mr. Topics Master, that is one of the bad things about my previous role as a classroom teacher. But I might just add that there have been so many wonderful experiences in teaching adults since then, in TAFE, that is technical and further education, in universities, in community centres, and of course in Toastmasters since then. And that would be the topic of another speech. Back to you, Mr. Topics Master.
All right. Did we recruit a vote counter for this evening? If we did.
We did recruit a vote counter for this evening, and that vote counter was Arlene.
Arlene. So people should send their votes to Arlene. So we had George, Jim, Carol Prahinsky, Carol McCullough, and Fabiola all gave table topic speeches. And our timer can let the vote counter also know if anybody ran over. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. Toaster. Thank you, Mr. Topics Master, and thank you to all of our topics participants tonight. I had fun listening to some of those, and I am glad that I didn't have a couple of those jobs, I have to tell you. But yes, teaching is always an interesting experience. Time now for evaluation. Evaluation is, and we've said it before, I'll say it again, it is the cornerstone, it is the key to the Toastmasters experience. If we don't get evaluation, then all we're doing is standing here flapping our gums. We need to get the feedback, we need to get the suggestions for improvement, but we also need to be told what we're doing really well. Tonight we have two quite experienced evaluators, and I'm looking forward to hearing and learning from them. I'm also, I have to say, and very apologetic to our first evaluator, Fabiola. I sent her perhaps the wrong details. I just want to confirm before we get to the evaluation, Adrian, yours was a number 4 speech from the Entertaining Speaker Manual, the dramatic talk. Was that the case?
That's correct.
It was. So it's a number 4 speech from the, and I think I might have sent Fabiola the details from speech 1, which means...
I sent it to her, the correct one.
Right. Oh, good. In that case, I've probably thrown a cat amongst the pigeons and really confused matters by trying to be helpful. Naughty me, naughty me.
Thank you.
To present her evaluation of Adrian's speech, ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome Fabiola Cleofa.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was the meeting. A little bit confusing, but I did get out of it. The entertaining speaker is a manual that really brings out the best from the speaker because you have to entertain an audience. And today, Adrian did from this manual, assignment number 4, the dramatic talk. And indeed, we were entertained with all the drama of one day in this private island. And it started actually with the day before and ended up at the island, the private island. I would have listened more to what was happening actually in the island, maybe introduction to the whole adventure. And on the island itself would have drawn us more into it. But nonetheless, the word choices that Adrian used were very vivid. And also, together with the I'm competing with the noise of the typing machine. Okay. And also the body movement also gave us a clear idea what was happening. And the enthusiasm in her voice also did that. One of the points that when she was coming to the climax, it was a suspense. And we all were listening to that. But then all of a sudden, I think something went lost. And there was that part that maybe should have put more attention to, that part where you got everybody to the high and then gave it the punch. That is when the idea came up. What are we going to do? You are going to be our bait by saying that you're pregnant so we can get help. So that was the part actually that was a little bit lost. And also at the end, the message from the whole story could have been also more to the point, where you could have let us know indeed pointers that you have encountered during that adventure at the island. Not only have your cell phone, because in your plot itself, it didn't come that clear what are the things that you were having, that you, at the end, you mentioned that be aware to have those when you have an adventure like this. But other than that, as it was a dramatic talk, that indeed did make an impact, that everybody was listening with attention. Back to you, Toastmasters of the meeting.
Thank you, Fabiola. Thank you for that insightful evaluation. I won't say any more because that's the job of the general evaluator. But before the general evaluator can come forward, we need to hear the other evaluation that we have for this evening, and I'm quite looking forward to Carol McCulloch's evaluation of the speech by Chris Gould. So, ladies and gentlemen, our second evaluation, again with time, and I should have told Scott this, but he worked it out anyway, with a time of 2, 2.5, and 3. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Coach Carol.
Thank you, Toastmaster Graham. Wow, I was so intrigued with Chris Gould's story today. Were you? I could see it in your eyes and in your close attention. So I think she has successfully engaged with us today. This was Project 2, Let's Get Personal. And what Chris was to do was to use vivid descriptions and dialogue to bring the story to life. And I know that she did this. My evaluation today will be based on 3 things: what I saw, what I heard, and what I felt. I will send the printed evaluation to Chris later. What I saw was a person intent on telling a wonderful story and a lovely smile to go with it. I saw a smooth segue to the photos in her presentation, and I saw a very skillful building of a plot of this story. What I heard were painted pictures, freaking out, washed away with the waves. The hum of the wheels is hypnotic. I was very impressed with the vocal variety that Chris brought into her storytelling today, and how she took us on the journey, not only with still pictures, but with a movie. Brilliant. A wonderful way to give us the feeling of being with her on the journey. And I could hear in her explanations about her partner, Jim, and I learned a little more of him through her explanations. I would have liked to have heard more of his character as he was doing the driving. I also felt genuine empathy for a couple of people who have been so brave to take this on board. And I'm sure you felt the same. It's not for everybody. I was in awe also of the way in which Chris segmented her story pieces by building up to the climax of the story, and to use her pictures and her videos. That was a stroke of genius. Sure, for us here in Australia, we don't know much about RV, so you might have had to explain what RV actually means. However, that's a minor point. I would really like to commend a wonderful storyteller for Chris, and I would love to hear more from you about your travels. And I thought that today, what you did was to showcase your superb presentation. Back to you, Toastmaster Graham.
Thank you, Toastmaster Carol. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time now for me to find out how we've done with various roles tonight. For example, we had somebody step in at the very last moment and agree to be the grammarian, and that was Jim Gould. Jim, can you let us know what heights and lows we achieved today?
Well, it was really kind of tough jumping in at the last minute. I wasn't really prepared, but I did write a couple of things down. Carol McCullough, good. Difficult at best, a stroke of genius. For my wife, I don't know why I should say that. Fortunes of employees go up and down. I kind of like that. That was George's. Let's see, Adrienne, it's like Gilligan's Island. I thought that struck me. But of course, I always listen to Chris Gould. Sometimes it's all about the road and the rhythm of the road and the rattle of the dishes. I really kind of like those. So if I were to give a grammarian's trophy, it must go to Chris today. Mr. Toastmaster.
And a wise man who says his wife deserves applause, I have to say. Thank you, Jim. But no, you're right. There were some beautiful turns of phrase in Chris's presentation, as Carol pointed out. I thank you for stepping in at the last moment and doing an admirable job as our grammarian this evening. Our watcher this evening was, I believe, Carol was watching what we were doing. So, Carol, how did we go?
You all did very well. I have some awards for you. The two best green screeners tonight are Graham and Arlene. Well done for your efforts. The two best lighting awards tonight are David and Carol P. Well done. The two best backgrounds, and now this might seem a little odd for you, but I give them those to Jack W. and Adrienne, because it's easy to see your face, Jack, with the rest of it blurred into a dark background, and very easy to see Adrienne on that white wall, I think, behind her. And the award for showing the timing so delightfully today goes to Scott, of course, because he positioned the cards on his right, and the white wall behind him helped to frame those. But I have one more for you. For being so brave in joining us tonight for the very first time, obviously on a mobile device, is Monica. Thank you so much for joining us and for using your mobile device, which is tricky to handle. And with that, I will give back to our Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Carol. Now, who was our art counter tonight? I can't actually see. I mean, I could go on to that. That would be Carol. That was Carol. I remember now, because I can remember because she's pointing it out. I like Carol. She never lets me forget what I'm doing. Well,
thank you,
Carol. How did we go for ums and ahs and other filler words?
We have some winners on this too. You ready? All right. I'm going to just start without necessarily pointing out the winners. Chris, your filler word of choice is the word and. You had 5 of them. Graham, your filler word of choice is ah. You had 15 of them. David, you had your filler word of choice is actually double phrases. So you'll say something and you'll say it again. So what if I, and that's what I mean. Carol, your filler word of choice was and. Fabiola, your filler word of choice was ah, and right behind it was a so. Jim Gould, you had a variety of phrases that would be counting as filler words. Kinda, ah, And that sort of thing, let's see. Some of that I felt wasn't needed. And Adrian, your word was amazing. I heard it several times, and so you might want to try to find an alternative word to substitute for the word amazing. And you also used the phrase, we were like. We were like, and it just didn't seem very punchy. And so I want to find something a little bit more Margaritaville. I don't know. Something else. Thank you. Back to you, Graham.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you very much. Scott, as timekeeper, can I get an indication from you how we went for timing tonight?
You certainly can, Mr. Toastmaster. So Adrienne spoke for 6 minutes and 33 seconds. Fabiola, who evaluated, was 3 minutes and 1 second. Chris spoke for 8 minutes and 6 seconds, with Coach Carol evaluating at 3 minutes and 10. We had some table topics times. So George was right on 2 minutes. Carol was 1 minute 52. Jim with 1 minute 50. And what else did we have? Fabiola was 1:39, with Coach Carol coming in at 2 minutes and 36. And if we just look at what we've just gone through with the wind-ups, Graham spoke for grammarian Jim spoke for 52 seconds. Carol spoke for 1 minute and 17, and Carol P was 1 minute and 22. I believe that may be it. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Scott. And can I give my personal thanks to Scott tonight, because there are two jobs above all others in a club meeting which are thankless. One is the timekeeper, because they've got to keep watching the time instead of watching the meeting and having fun. And the other, in this particular club, is the chat monitor, who has to keep watching the chat to make sure that we're doing that. And with that, can I ask if our chat monitor, Arlene, could join us? Any observations from tonight, Arlene, and any votes that we have to announce?
Yes, the chat was fairly quiet while everybody was speaking, which is good because we should be listening to the speeches. And the voting went, I sent it to you, but you want me to announce the voting? Or do you want to announce it?
I'm happy to announce those, if you're happy for me to announce them.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Arlene. Thank you for once again stepping in and doing this role, particularly since it was at late notice, and I think that it was a terrific job that you've done. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I announce that the best evaluator of the evening goes to Carol M. The best speaker goes to Chris, and the best table topics to Carol P. Well done to each of you. Consider this your virtual ribbon. All right, that's it for tonight from me. I'd like to thank everybody for stepping up at the last moment and making my job easier than it could have been, and certainly easier than it deserved to be, because I was really slack and didn't start doing anything about this until 24 hours ago. So I thank you, and I now hand control back to the President, who can wrap up the meeting and call for guest comments, I would think. Is that a...
Thank you, Graham. Yeah, that would be most wonderful. And we'd like to hear from our guests, because one of the ways that we know whether we're doing a good job is whether we make
I'm sorry.
First impression.
Sorry, David, before you do, I am sorry. That was why George was waving. I knew I'd forget something. It's the general evaluator.
Oh, dear.
I do apologize. George.
I feel so bad, so left out. I would say this is a very well-run meeting. The club has not been around that long, but the meetings run smoothly and carefully. Graham, for all your apologies, you portrayed yourself as both a efficient and organized and friendly Toastmaster of the day. For that, I congratulate you. Two speakers were quite wonderful. In the case of the first one, Adrian, I think you could develop that into a humor contest speech if your district has humor contest. You need some more laughs and so forth like that, but you could really do a nice job with that one, leading up to some big finish of some kind. Who knows? Maybe you discover you're pregnant after all, or something like that. Chris, I was most intrigued by your speech. I found it educational because I've been tossing around the idea of possibly doing some RVing. I must admit, my other half is not yet convinced. So perhaps I can use some of your material to try to flavor it one way or the other. I like the two evaluations. Fabiola, I thought you spent more time than strictly necessary recapping the speech itself as opposed to talking about it, but it was still a good one. And Carol, you as always have a very structured and organized way of giving your presentations, and I really appreciate that. So I think I'm pretty much out of time. I don't know if this has been brought before. In some of my clubs, the general evaluator is the one that calls on the roll folks, the counter, the grammarian, and so forth. And the point is fairly specific. It is to even out the speaking time during the meeting, where rather than the Toastmaster doing practically all of it. I don't know if it's been considered before in this club, but it would be another way to pass around the speaking opportunities within the club, and it might be worth considering at a later time. Now I will turn it back to our Toastmaster.
All right. Thank you, George, and thank you for your contribution this evening. And again, my apologies for not going to you. I think the board will probably consider returning the auxiliary roles to the general evaluator, which is the way that it's done in North American clubs, rather than having it being done by the Toastmaster. But that's something the board will no doubt consider. On the subject of the board, El Presidente, it's all yours.
All right. Well, the truth is we've been seesawing back and forth between a few different ways of running our meeting. We're still debugging a few things. We just started taking votes on best speaker and best table topic speaker a little while ago, and so people haven't all gotten in the habit of doing that. So there's some things that we're still debugging in our meetings. But Jack, can I ask you to give your impressions of what you thought of this meeting? What you tell us what we can improve. Can't hear you yet, Jack.
All right, let's try that. No, there we go. Okay, I'm still getting used to this. It's nice to see people from all around the world in one place. That's really awesome. And I just wanted to check it out partly because of the transition to Pathways and the new ways that are going to be Toastmasters is going to be operating. So that was something that I wanted to see how the online experience is. And you guys have a great meeting. This ran really smooth. Very nice.
Okay. All right. Thanks for giving us credit for that, for what we did right. And Monica, can we get a little bit of feedback from you?
I really enjoyed the meeting. I thought it ran really well, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
All right. Well, you are welcome back at any time. And if you want to join, and we'll talk about that at the appropriate time. Let me take a moment to go over the schedule for next week. So we will be, let's see, my technology working. We will be having a special meeting featuring Johnny, the Transition Man Campbell, who is a very impressive fellow. He gives a great inspirational speech about developing your career and chasing your dreams, but he's not going to do that for us. We're going to put him off his game and ask him to talk about technique, about how he uses the online medium. So it won't be a regular meeting with 3 speeches and so forth. Johnny will take up most of the program. I think we should still have time for some table topics, and we will need to fill a few other roles. We have Adrienne doing Toastmaster of the Day, but can I get any volunteers for some of the supporting roles? Most of which are open at this moment. Counter, grammarian. Don't all speak at once.
I'm happy to take. I'm happy to take on chat monitor if you want.
Okay.
I'm not sure that we will need a vote counter because I don't know.
Yeah, well, if we do table topics, yeah, I was eyeing that. And we do have somebody scheduled to do table topics. I may want to talk with Johnny Campbell about how much of the the meeting, he thinks he can productively occupy. Can I get a volunteer for any of these other roles for next week?
I'll take timer, Fabiola.
Timer, or timer's Arlene's in as timer.
Okay.
We make you grammarian?
Okay.
Okay.
Will we be evaluating him? No.
No, we just have a general, I put myself in as general evaluator just so I can give some wrap-up comments at the end of the meeting. So all right, I'll pester you over the course of the week. Other than that, I'll let you go on with your evening or your morning as it may be. And thank you all for coming. I hope to see you next week.
Around, David.
I'm sorry?
Next Monday, there's a chance that we might be under a different.
Well, yeah. Well, then I guess the Australians will take over the meeting, and we'll be wading around hip deep in water. Yeah.
David, you might want to create a backup plan just because.
Yeah, this is not a bad idea. I did want to mention one other thing. I am trying to get people to renew their dues. And if you do it on the website, you should get a confirmation screen that looks something like this. So it will show a transaction number. Apparently, a few people thought they had paid, and the payment never came through. So watch for that transaction confirmation page, and I'm going to send out that link to renew for those of you who are members to stay members. We hope you'll continue on with us. So thank you very much, and have a great week, everyone.
Nice meeting you all. Good night.
Happy Labor Day.
Good night.
Everybody.
Good night.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.